This is the Galvan euro-nymph fly reel, and it's Galvan's take on a Euro-specific reel. If you've been following the Galvan brand for a while, you'll know that Galvan doesn't release new products very often. And this, even though it's a few years old, is actually their newest product release. And as you're watching this video, you might say to yourself, this reel looks pretty familiar. And that's because it's a lot like the Galvan Torque, with one minor detail that's been changed, but we'll get to that later. And before we dive into our 5 factors, let's talk about why this is a euro-nymphing specific reel. And the answer is really simple. Galvan has built in a full cage into the key parts of the frame. So while it looks a little bit funny with the spool off, when you put the spool on, you'll notice that your really thin Euro leader or really thin Euro fly line is gonna go through this fully enclosed portion of the frame. And that's gonna be important because nobody likes when their leader goes from one part of the frame to the other, and it's a good way to lose a fish if you're not paying attention. But now let's move on to the drag. And the drag on this Galvan euro-nymph is gonna be based on the drag on the Galvan Torque. And pretty much the rest of the reel is going to be fairly similar to the Galvan Torque as well. But that's a great thing because the Galvan Torque is one of the best reels we've tested, and it's still one of our all-time favorite freshwater reels. This drag is going to have about 4 turns of drag adjustability, which is probably about 2 turns more than I'd really like. But this drag also has about 7 and change pounds of strength, so because that's way more than you'll need for any freshwater applications, and way more than you'll need for any euro-nymphing applications, that extra adjustability is actually going to come in handy, because if you tighten this drag down too far, that 11-foot 2-weight is going to snap. And just like the Torque, the Galvan euro-nymph is not a sealed drag, so just in case you were thinking about euro-nymphing for bonefish, you might want to find a different reel. And now let's move on to the spool. We've got a max diameter of 3.48 inches, a width of 0.95 inches, which is nice and narrow, and an arbor size of 2.48 inches. And that's going to yield a retrieval rate of about 8.4 inches per turn, which is really quite fast. This is absolutely a modern reel in terms of line pickup. It's also going to hold a little over 100 yards of backing with a 5-weight, which means probably close to 200 yards with your 000 weight euro-nymph line, if you're even using one. But the bottom line is, plenty of backing will fit on this Galvan euro-nymph reel. And more importantly, when you're fighting a fish, you'll have that extra fast line pickup to get him in as quickly as you need to. Up next is going to be the weight, and the Galvan euro-nymph comes in at 5.2 ounces, which is definitely on the heavy side for a reel of this size. And if I was putting this reel on my 9-foot 5-weight or a 4-weight, I might be concerned about that. But because this is a euro-nymph specific reel, it really doesn't matter. A little bit of extra weight while you're euro-nymphing is not going to be as critical as it is on your standard 9-foot 5-weight, let's say. As we've talked about before in other videos, you're going to want to make sure that whatever reel you choose balances out your rod nicely. Fortunately, most euro-nymphing rods are now down locking and you can put quite a light reel on them, but if you just prefer more weight, 5.2 ounces is a great weight. Up next is sound, and let's take a listen. As you can tell, it's got a nice trouty click on the incoming. It's definitely not the loudest click ever, but it's definitely solid. On the outgoing, on the other hand, it's a bit more muted. I don't like it quite as much, and I definitely would like more feedback, even though trout are probably not going to be taking out lots and lots of drag. And last but not least are the ergonomics, and they're pretty good on this Galvan euro-nymph. We've got a nice handle, although I do wish it were a little bit longer, and we've got a really nice drag knob, though for 2024 standards, it is a little bit smaller than some of the competition out there. And the spool release is nice and quick, so if you are fishing with multiple spools, multiple fly lines, you'll be able to do that really easily with this Galvan euro-nymph. And now it's time to talk price, which is a lot. This 3.7 sized Galvan euro-nymph retails for $485. And I think that's probably the toughest part of this reel for me. That is just a really large sum of money for a reel that you're gonna be using for trout. With that said, if you're looking for one of the absolute best, highest performing euro-nymph reels out there, this is probably it. On the other hand, if you're looking for a run-of-the-mill euro-nymph reel, there are way cheaper options out there. Because euro-nymphing reels do not have to be super light, there are just a lot of options out there that cost way less money. Tell us what you think of the Galvan euro-nymph, and in particular what you think about the pricing of this reel by leaving us a comment in the box below. And if you have questions about this reel or any reel in the Galvan lineup, don't forget you can always give us a call at 888-413-5211 or email us 24/7 at support@tridentflyfishing.com. And don't forget, if you like this review, we've got lots more coming right up, so subscribe to our channel. I'm Ben, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.